Hello and welcome to the Don't Sign the Lease podcast. I'm your host, George Morales. Thank you for tuning into this weekly look at commercial real estate. We track commercial real estate so you can focus on your business. This is episode 123. Episode 123, we've entitled it WFM, Retail, and WeWork. WFM, Retail, and WeWork. What does WFM stand for? Don't worry, even if there's children listening, it stands for work from home, but it really hasn't caught on. Everyone calls it work from home, retail, and WeWork. So that's kind of what's been headlining the local and national news. In fact, there was someone who spoke on a national basis about work from home. He's a billionaire influencer, big tech guy, EV car guy. You can probably start guessing who I'm talking about. He had some things to say about work from home that I think we need to discuss. In my opinion, not a lot of good things to say about it, but it's his opinion, free speech, and he can run his company however he'd like to. But he delved into an area that I think we need to talk about. Before we dive into the podcast, again, this is a commercial real estate podcast. It is episode 123. If you just back up to last week's episode, we gave an in-depth look at commercial real estate in Miami, specifically Brickell Avenue. Brickell Avenue might be in the entire United States the hottest office market, where the top tier one, there's 4 major office towers that comprise half of the Brickell Avenue Class A market. They're averaging almost $145 a square foot. Overall, Class A rates are just over $118 a square foot, and I encourage you, go back and listen to that podcast, share it with others. If you're a tenant on Brickell, I can think of no better way to get informed about what's happening or what's coming. Listen, I had clients who are still paying in the 50s, for Class A space with leases expiring the next 2 years, and they need to know what's happening. This is what we do as part of our commercial real estate firm, which is entitled Blue Box Real Estate. I encourage you to go to blueboxre.com. We're a best-in-class independent commercial real estate firm that specializes in tenant advisory services, landlord advisory services, and investment sales. Why do I highlight that we're independent, best-in-class, and it's more important than ever? We don't have any office listings in the Brickell area, in downtown, in Coral Gables, in Kendall, in Doral. These are the major office markets of Miami-Dade County. Certainly, we don't have anything in Broward or Palm Beach. So our landlord advisory services at this point is really shortened to North Miami, where we have our offices, 11900 Biscayne Boulevard, as well as Miami Lakes. But we have a building that's fully leased there. Great client, worked with them for many years, so we handle their real estate. When it comes to tenant advisory services, if you are on Brickell, listen, if you're a tenant on Brickell Avenue, you have a 5,000 square foot hedge fund, investment firm, accounting firm, law firm, whatever it might be. Who do you think is going to be more important? When your broker who works at a national firm that also has a $500 million listing or 3 million square feet of space in Brickell, who do you think is going to take the priority when push comes to shove? Are they going to fight for you? And I don't just mean your broker. I don't mean the actual individual. I mean the firm as a whole has a bigger picture. They need to take care of that big dog, and that big dog oftentimes is the landlord. Your 5,000, 10,000 square foot office lease is meaningless to that firm compared to that 500,000 square foot or 1 million square foot account on Brickell or downtown. That's why we would encourage you to find a tenant representation firm or brokerage team that is not conflicted, whose firm does not represent the very office landlords that you're going to have to negotiate and compete against to try to leverage your position and get a good deal. You want to have someone who's going to fight for you and who's going to give you the best counsel, even if it means don't go there or go there. And it's unbiased. It's not trying to scratch the back of a large landlord that they need to take care of because things have slowed down and you need to start slamming deals. These things happen. I've been there, done that. Well, I haven't done that, but I've been there. I've seen that. And these things are real. And there's been multiple stories of brokers who've resigned out of integrity saying, I am not going to push certain buildings because my firm needs me to because it's important. And so now more than ever, where rental rates are double, in some cases triple in some buildings, if you're an office tenant in Brickell Avenue downtown or any of these markets that have taken off in South Florida, please consider contacting us at blueboxre.com for a non-conflicted, independent tenant representation. Okay, that's my plug. That's how we pay bills. For those of you who are not in our local markets, thanks for tuning in and hanging with us. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got the landing page at don'tsignthelease.com, and there you can get a copy of our book, Commercial Real Estate Office Leasing. This is for business owners and realtors. Business owners, you need to know what your broker is doing, even if you have a broker, so you can speak the same language with them. And if you don't have a broker, you haven't read my book yet, because it's going to show you what we do and the need for us. And then if you're a realtor, maybe you do residential, you've sold someone their house or their condo, now they say, hey, I need help with my office, industrial, retail. This book is for you as well. So please get a copy of it. Go to don'tsignthelease.com, help the show out, follow the links. It is, let me scroll down right there, that big blue, beautiful button that turns yellow. It says order now. Easy peasy, takes you to our landing page so you can buy the book. All right, we're going to kick right in. WFM. WFM stands for Work From Home. And you may have guessed it, the gentleman I was thinking of is this man called Elon Musk. Elon Musk. He says working from home is morally wrong. Working from home is morally wrong. Very interesting take. Let's read a little bit about the article, then we'll watch this 4-minute video by CBS News, and then we'll discuss it. Billionaire Elon Musk underlined his views on remote work in no uncertain terms this week, declaring that working from home is morally wrong. Wow. The Tesla founder and Twitter owner, well, it says Twitter. I think he changed the name to X, who has claimed to work 7 days a week, said in an interview with CNBC's David Faber that employees are more productive in person. But he also expressed disdain for white-collar employees who work from home on class grounds, with most service employees required to do their job on site. There are some exceptions, but I kind of think the whole notion of work from home is a bit like a fake Marie Antoinette quote, "Let them eat cake," he said. You're going to make people who make your food that gets delivered that can't work from home, the people that come fix your house, they can't work from home, but you can? Does that seem morally right? That's messed up, Musk said. Musk also took aim at bosses who work from home while overseeing employees who must show up in person to do their job, calling them out of touch and hypocritical for asking everyone else to not work from home while they do. Okay, it's messed up to assume that, yes, they have to go to work, but you don't. It's not just productivity thing. I think it's morally wrong, he told MSNBC. Many large employers in the U.S. and abroad have settled on hybrid work models, recognizing that employees prize flexibility and enjoy the time and cost savings that come from not having to commute to the office. Laptop la la land is what he calls it. The laptop class is a living in la la land, as I said. Look at the cars. Are people working from home here? Of course not, Musk said. Not surprisingly, Tesla, SpaceX, and until recently, Twitter CEO requires that his employees show up to work in person. Musk said he himself works almost every day, taking just 2 to 3 days off per year. I work 7 days a week, but I'm not expecting others to do that, he said. All right, well, he kind of gave away the farm, in my opinion. Here's my question, and then we'll get a look at this video and talk a little bit more about work from home and the fact that corporate world is starting to peel that back, no doubt, and who is that impacting. But Elon Musk says working from home is morally wrong. Now, let's make sure we're not misquoting him, because he says later that, at least in this article, that it's tagged the morally wrong to the fact that there are CEOs who require their employees to work from home while they're not. I mean, to work in the office while they're not. And that's morally wrong. You know, I probably, it's hypocritical. I don't know if I would call it morally wrong. It's certainly hypocritical. Do as I say, not as I do. But I have to listen to the whole interview, because I don't know if this is pulled out of context, that working from home is morally wrong. If it's in the context of bosses that are staying home but forcing their employees to come to the office, again, I don't think that even that you can necessarily say it's morally wrong. But let's hypocritical, maybe. Morally wrong, I don't know. And here's my question for Elon Musk, as I'm sure he's watching. Elon, what standard are you using to determine your morals? What standard? I'll tell you, my standard is is God's word, is the Bible. It's the 10 Commandments. It's actually something that society has been built on, the 10 Commandments. And thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not bear false witness. I bounced all over those. But the 10 Commandments, this is our moral standard. And I didn't talk about the first 4, which are, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of, have any graven images and worship them. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. And remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And how can I forget? Honor your father and your mother. I mean, this is what society is based on. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. That's how we define morality. That's how I define morality. And that's how, in large part, Western society has defined morality. And here Elon Musk works 7 days a week. He takes 2 or 3 days off. So I know that he's not defining his morality based on the 10 Commandments, because commandment, I believe it's number 4, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, and on the 7th day you shall rest. I would never require employees to work 7 days a week, because that'd be morally wrong according to the 10 Commandments. You see, I'm trying to show you where I'm basing my moral standards on, based on the 10 Commandments. Elon Musk, what are you basing your moral standards on by saying working from home is morally wrong, if indeed that's the correct quote? Working from home is morally wrong. On what standard are you basing that other than your own? Yourself, your musing, your opinion, your belief, your values. Well, that's fine. You know that's your opinion. You can run your company the way you want to. Now, I don't think it's morally wrong to work from home. Let me ask you a question, Elon Musk. What about the working mother? What about working moms? Shouldn't they be allowed to work from home? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good place to applaud. How about seniors? Shouldn't they be allowed to work from home? Yeah, I think they should. I mean, think about who it benefits. So, Elon, I think you're only hurting yourself by taking this hard stance. And first of all, stay out of morality. Make good cars, work on Twitter, stay out of the morality game unless you're going to tell us where you're getting your morality. Tell us, hey, I am basing this on what? On what, Elon? What determines that it's morally wrong? And that's where I don't want to get into an area of philosophy or even politics here, but it seems like our politicians try to redefine what is moral and what is right and wrong on a weekly basis based on polls. We need a standard. It used to be the 10 Commandments in Western society, and when you remove that, you're left with people like billionaires telling us what they deem as morally right and morally wrong, and politicians, because they're supported by these billionaires, their campaign finance and so forth, tends to lean that way. And so we need to return back to a moral standard, and I would argue the only standard is God's standard that we need to come under, which is the 10 Commandments. But that said, let's take a look at this video here based on work from home. I think it's very insightful.
First of all, curse that virus, but bless high-speed internet.
I think like anybody, it was a bit of an adjustment. Working from home, you have the opportunity to concentrate and be more focused in a way that you naturally can't in an office.
I think it's working really well, and the thought of commuting again and being on the train and the time that I would lose to that.
My office is in my car, in my home, in my kitchen.
So many people started working from home for the first time during the pandemic, and they found that they actually really like it. So that's led to this tug of war between employers and employees.
When the pandemic hit, millions of people converted their kitchens, living rooms, and bedrooms into home offices. Now, 3 years later, companies want workers to return to the buildings they vacated. Even though many employees say they're happy staying at home, but those remote options are shrinking. LinkedIn reports the number of jobs with the work from home option account for just over 12% of postings. That's down from 20.6% last year. Still, it's what workers want. that shrinking pool of jobs is attracting the majority of applicants. Nearly 51% of applicants are looking for remote work. As businesses and their employees work through this mismatch, corporations are investing in other ways to attract and retain their workforce. The jobs, human resource analytics, diversity and inclusion, and employee experience managers are 3 of the top 5 fastest growing positions in the U.S., according to LinkedIn. Guy Berger joins me now. He is the principal economist at LinkedIn. Guy, it's good to see you again. How do you see this push and pull between remote work? Is it become and the desire to bring people back to the office? Where does the needle stand on that push and pull?
Well, the needle is far more toward remote work than it was before the pandemic, but it is swinging back as employers gain some bargaining power relative to workers.
And that bargaining power comes from what? The waning of the pandemic as a force in American life, or the jitters and the feelings about the economy?
I think a lot of it's the latter. I think that, it's important to remember that while the labor market is still pretty hot and there's still a lot of opportunity out there for people seeking jobs, it's not as much as it was, at the height of the Great Reshuffle at the beginning of 2022. And so employers are kind of flexing those muscles a little bit and being a little stingier with offering remote work and flexibility.
You mentioned the Great Reshuffle. We've talked about this before. You prefer that term to the Great Resignation, and so you can remind us again why that is the case. But the number of people transitioning from one job to another has dropped 35% from the same time last year. Is the end of this Great Reshuffling a choice by workers, or is it created out of the current state of economic conditions?
I think that it's the state of the current economic conditions. The labor market is still hot. It's still tight, but it's cooled off a little bit from where we were a year ago. Whereas before, employees and potential people searching for jobs might have had a lot of opportunities. Now they still have opportunities, not as many. And so they're not quitting as quickly as they did before.
Do you see employers doing anything to take advantage of this opportunity, which is it's a chance to reimagine work. It's a chance to rethink and make work more meaningful, productive, try out new kinds of ideas, because basically everybody could say, we got a fresh sheet of paper here, it's clean, let's redesign. Is that any part of the thinking in terms of this relationship between employers and employees?
Absolutely. And jumping back to the initial discussion on remote work, what's interesting is that while a lot of employers are pulling back from offering these kind of remote roles, employers that are still willing to offer remote work, that are still willing to offer this flexibility, they suddenly have, they're suddenly in the driver's seat, being able to pick up talent they would never have been able to hire before. So I think this is actually a great opportunity for a lot of employers to really, increase their footprint.
One of the things we also noticed in these data was the shift of people moving back to metro areas. Just one of them, where you are in San Francisco, one of the biggest influxes in the past year. What's behind that, do you think?
Well, I think that the pandemic caused people to really move to a lot of areas, being able to work in places they hadn't considered before. And, a lot of this will be persistent, but some of it is just gradually achieving some normalization and shifting, maybe not all the way, but part of the way back to what the pre-pandemic world of work looked like.
All right, Guy Berger, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, John.
All right, there you have it. We don't need to. We're not sponsored by Kia, so we don't need to play their ad. All right, but Kia, you can reach out to us. So right now we have a disconnect. You've got this transition where I saw a stat: 50% of employees still value flexibility and working from home, but only 12% of the corporate world is now, or advertised jobs on LinkedIn, okay? Advertised jobs on LinkedIn, only 12% are offering work from home capability. So you have 50% of those who are applying for jobs on LinkedIn searching for work from home opportunity, and only 12% of the jobs that are available offer work from home. But I think something that Mr. Berger from LinkedIn hit on, and this is where I think Elon Musk is hurting himself, is there's a lot of talent out there that, because maybe they're working mom, maybe they're senior, maybe they're taking care of an elderly parent, that working from home or having that flexibility on occasion is very meaningful, and yet they're still very great workers, great intellect, great skill set. They can bring a lot of value to your company, and because you take this stance like Elon does that it's morally wrong, he's missing out. He's hurting himself. But again, that's what capitalism allows you to do. You can make good decisions, you can make dumb decisions, and then you suffer the consequences of it as the market dictates whether that was good or bad. So let's just skim through this next article because it goes along this work from home. Who was most likely to leave after tech titans returned to the office? A surprising group. Now, what this article is about, again, this is from South Florida Business Journal. This is about tech companies have all started mandating work from home and come back to the office. And at the same time, you've had layoffs in these big tech companies. So come back to the office, but some of you get to stay home because you're not coming back. So who is it being affected the most? Well, the article points out new research looked at which employees were most likely to leave after corporate titans returned to the office. It wasn't Gen Z, but it was a costly group. And of course, this version says you have to subscribe for $4. I am a subscriber. Let me switch to, there we go. On my other account here is got the article up and running. Okay, as a return to, this is the same. Okay. As a return to office ramped up for corporate heavyweights after the pandemic, there was a considerable discussion about what the moves would mean for turnover, especially for younger workers and women. New research out of the University of Michigan, Ipsos Public Affairs, and the University of Chicago explored what happened once those policies were in place. The verdict: one group did have elevated turnover rate following the implementation of return policies, but it wasn't Gen Z and it wasn't women. For Microsoft, SpaceX, again, that's Mr. Elon Musk, and Apple, it was actually senior workers in general who were most likely to have changed roles in the wake of returning to the office. The data comes as employee sentiments on the return evolved, with more employees expressing a preference for in-office work and fully remote work losing momentum, especially for high-paying roles. The research compared 260 million resumes from across the tech sector worldwide to examine the impact of return-to-work policies. Researchers look closely at Microsoft, SpaceX, and Apple because their return-to-work efforts predated the wave of layoffs hitting the industry. While many caution that return-to-work policies could lead to higher turnover among women, a pivotal group in the post-pandemic workforce, the data showed no statistical difference based on gender. Researchers also found the turnover rates for senior workers at the three companies were higher than senior workers at other companies in the industry. It's worth noting that there are many reasons employees leave roles, and coveted employees in the tech sector have retained leverage as even as industries lay off. The shift appears to be driven by employees leaving to larger firms that are direct competitors, the research reported, noting that they could be costly due to hiring and training costs as well as competitive cost of lost operational knowledge. The research notes Microsoft, SpaceX, and Apple account for about 2% of employment in the tech sector and 30% of its revenue, meaning these companies can serve as market leaders and trendsetters for return to work. All right, so I won't read the whole article, but this is a reminder that please connect with us in one form or fashion. Subscribe to this podcast. Hit us on LinkedIn, Blue Box Corporate Real Estate page. A lot of the articles that we talk about go through there on a daily basis. And go to blueboxre.com and subscribe there to our website. And every Monday morning, you'll get an email summarizing the commercial real estate discussion and articles. Okay, that is going to wrap up our look at work from home. In a nutshell, Elon Musk thinks it's morally wrong, allegedly. Okay, maybe it's a misquote, and I question, Elon, where are you getting your moral standards? You're working 7 days a week. You're only taking 2 or 3 days off, so you're certainly not basing your moral standards based on the 10 Commandments. So tell us, please, other than what you think is right and wrong, what moral standard? We need something more than you, Elon. We need something bigger, something more transcendent, like God of the universe who gave us his word and the 10 Commandments for us to determine what moral standards and what is right and wrong, not Elon. So secondly, this return from home is going to hurt some corporations because they're missing out on maybe working moms, maybe senior employees, as we saw here, who are not returning when demanded to. And look, it makes sense. They have options. They're probably a little bit more experienced. They can go find another job. They can work from home or they just get out of the work field altogether if they've been prudent with their savings. And then third, you could have some folks who are younger, maybe my generation, who has to caretake parents at home. And you could think of a host of other reasons why working from home might benefit a person. And so to call that morally wrong is perhaps morally wrong. Okay, twist of words there. Next, we said we're going to talk about WeWork. And what do we see in WeWork? Looks to me like WeWork is doing a phenomenal job getting out of bankruptcy. And this is from CoStar. WeWork seeks to keep 89 additional leases in the United States and Canada. If you've been keeping track of the WeWork story, they very quickly, Adam Newman exploded them, right or wrong. He got kicked out, and they overstretched, spent too much money partying, and got in trouble. But they were the catalyst to really exploding co-working. And so they became the co-working what like Xerox was to the copy machine. So I'll get calls sometimes, people asking, do you have WeWork? Or it's become synonymous with co-working. Even though Regus and Spaces have been there longer, WeWork, because they exploded so quickly and came onto the national, international scene, kind of became the face of co-working, that they were hanging on for years by the skin of their teeth, if that's a saying. And COVID and the pandemic and the shutdown just exposed them. And in many ways, they've been trying to get out of that. They declared for bankruptcy. They've been shutting down some of the larger, less profitable centers across the world, London and Europe, and even in New York and in Miami. We've lost a few. But it looks like they've gotten through a lot of their portfolio. Flexible workspace provider says it finished portfolio review in most markets. WeWork said it plans to assume 89 additional leases in the United States and Canada as a global flex workplace provider, scheduled to try and exit from Chapter 11 on May 30th. Today's, you were talking about by the time this podcast comes out, 6 or 7 days. The New York-based company is keeping the additional leases in cities including Raleigh, North Carolina, Montreal, and San Francisco in the United States and Canada, where its bankruptcy cases applies. The company said Monday in a statement the new leases it's assuming came a week after 9 others the company said it's also retaining, including 201 Spear Street in San Francisco, 430 Park Avenue in New York. With the latest batch of leases, the high-profile company that had rapid growth in spending in the decade after its 2010 founding said its lease portfolio review in vast majority of its markets, including top cities such as Chicago, Denver, Houston, San Francisco, Salt Lake, Seattle, Vancouver, and Washington. Those cities WeWork said it's keeping its strongest, most popular locations. That seems to be the same for our market here. WeWork is still finishing up its review on other markets, including its home city of New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Maryland, Toronto, Calgary, and Canada, company spokesperson said. All right, we don't need to kind of dig into the entire article, though you're welcome to reach out to us. It talks about WeWork plans to keep a few more and actually lists 360 Northwest 27th Street, which is a newer location in Miami by the river, and it also mentions 501 East Kennedy Boulevard in Tampa. So a couple in Florida are going to survive. But again, co-working is here. I said in the midst of the pandemic, I would double down on co-working because of the way that folks are working closer to home and the benefit of having this hub and spoke model. And it seems to be the case. I'm dealing with 1 or 2, 3, I guess, on a local basis. And one helping to expand, and the other 2 helping to grow in other markets in Florida. And so there's still much demand for co-working in a lot of pockets. So WeWork looks like they're going to survive and come out of bankruptcy soon, which is good for all the early investors in the WeWork stock as well. And let's keep going, all right? And we could have easily here, this is from BizNow, another article on co-working. WeWork has determined the future of 97% of its global portfolio and still needs to act on a few other leases. So they're 97%, that's pretty good. Only 3% more to go, and they would have worked through their entire portfolio to try to survive. Okay, now the last one, we talked about work from home. We talked about WeWork. Let's take a look at retail. All right, so much is said about retail. Right now, as we speak, there is a convention in Las Vegas, ICSC Convention, which is the big week-long or so convention that happens in Vegas. All the retailers get together, strike deals, make plans for the year. It's really a great event. I've been there. It's 2000 and I want to say 2007. I was there, and they take 3 or 4 floors in the convention center, and it's quite amusing if you live in the area here or are in retail. I encourage you to go. Starbucks will build out a Starbucks in the convention center, and so will McDonald's and D&D and whoever's out there, Culver's and Chick-fil-A and all the retailers are there. So if you have a property, you have a piece of dirt, you want to develop a retail center, and you need big box, little boxes, out parcels, shadow boxes, whatever you might need, this is a great place to go, because the purpose of this is it's to strike deals. You go, you set up meetings, you get to meet with all the corporate heads of real estate and pitch them your location. And retail, more than office, is location driven, and so this is a great opportunity, the ICSC Convention. So retail's been in the news this week, and I wanted to cover this article. 3 types of businesses largely drive retail demand resurgence. There's much to say about this retail apocalypse, that retail after the pandemic was going to be just done. We're all going to shop from home on Amazon. We're never going to leave our houses. We're only going to eat by DoorDash delivering to us. And, well, that didn't happen. Quick service restaurants, discounters, and sports and hobby retailers increasing leasing activity. Now, there's this beautiful chart that goes all the way back to 2016. And then you can see 2020, the pandemic, and goes all the way to 2023. And you can see the predominant player in leasing share is food service. In 2023, they're about 19.1% of all retail demand is food service. The next one is orange. That's discounters, okay? That's discounters. I guess that would be 5 and below in those types of groups. The green is fitness. So, sorry, I said that kind of loud. Fitness. That's LA Fitness. That's Planet Fitness. That's Crunch or 24-hour fitness and so forth. The yellow on this chart here, I believe, is food and beverage and so forth. Then you get purple, education, and healthcare, and that seems to stay pretty standard across. And a lot of these, they haven't shifted a lot. It's interesting that food and beverage actually inched down. I mean, they were a lot higher in 2020 as a percentage, but maybe that's getting too much in the weeds. Let's look at the article from CoStar. You wouldn't know it from headlines focusing on recent store closings, but the overall U.S. retail sector has undergone a resurgence in the past couple of years, with vacancy rates declining and rents rising to record highs. 3 drivers are supporting the revival. There's been a significant pullback in the number of stores closing overall. All at the same time, there's been very little new retail development, combined with active refurbishing of old centers. In addition, retail property has benefited from broad-based demand increasing across several segments, including food and beverage, sporting goods, discounters, as well as fitness and healthcare firms. While demand for retail space has been broad-based across tenant types, a handful of sectors accounted for most of the new retail spaces leased in 2023. The big 5 of, here they are, big 5. I always wondered, what are the big 5 of retail? Here it comes. Food services, can you see that? Discount, fitness, grocery, and healthcare accounted for nearly 60% of all new leasing activity during the year. All right, so folks, you're just thinking of developing a retail center, contact Blue Box Real Estate. You're thinking of trying to fill in that vacant 20 to 40,000 square foot box. Where are you going to go to? You're going to go to food services, discount, fitness, grocery, and healthcare services. That's what the market is telling you. Food services sector led in terms of relative leasing share in 2023, accounting for just over 19% of all new leasing activity during the year. Now, if 19% demand is coming from food services, of that 19%, the majority of that has to be Chick-fil-A, because every corner I look at here in South Florida, they're building a Chick-fil-A. It used to be a treat to go to Chick-fil-A. We used to take the kids on vacation. We go to Atlanta or the mountains, and we made sure we hit all the Chick-fil-A's because we didn't have any down here except in the malls. Well, now they're on every corner. So we'll see how that works long term, but it seems like Chick-fil-A is probably absorbing a lot of that demand. PDQ is another one. They're just popping up everywhere. Back to the article. This represents the highest share of leasing by in any single sector on record, as demand for quick service restaurants and coffee shops accelerated in the wake of record levels of spending on food out of the home. So Americans spend nearly $94 billion at food, services, and drinking places in April, an increase of 6% from 2022 and 40% since the start of 2020. Americans, we like to eat. since 2020, we're spending 40% more on food services. Now, I would suspect a large part due to the increased costs, right? If we could go back in the time capsule to March 2020, you could probably get a full meal at Chick-fil-A for $6 or $7, and today it's going to cost you $10 or $11. So I would say that labor cost and food cost all related to, some of it is related to political movements and increasing the wage per hour. Some of it is due to high gas prices. You know, when gas prices go from $2 to $4, well, guess what? All that food gets delivered. All those packages are made out of plastic or styrofoam or something that's petroleum based. So that increases cost. So I would say the 40% increase since 2020 probably has a lot more to do with inflation than anything else. But we'll take a look. It says the relative share of leasing by food service establishments was 2.2% higher than the annual average during the past 5 years preceding the pandemic. Got a beautiful chart. Now, listen, this is one of the reasons we're doing this on YouTube is now when we talk about real estate, you can see these beautiful charts. And again, I encourage you go back to last week and look at the Brickell market. We've got beautiful charts to take a look at. And here you see, I'm trying to read this chart, 2023 relative share of leasing, food services taking almost 19%. Discount is next at almost 15%. Fitness at almost 10%. Grocery stores probably around 8 or 9%. Furniture, sporting goods are the other ones that pop up on this list, okay? Other retail segments that recorded significant increases in relative leasing share include 2 segments, sporting goods, books, and hobby stores and discount retailers. Now, am I the only one that's starting to see Barnes & Noble open up smaller stores, maybe half or a third of the size in more locations? I think that's encouraging that people are still interested in reading and not just, sitting on their phone and just, scroll, but actually cracking open a book, turning its pages. I think that's encouraging. Retail leasing activity by sporting goods, bookstores, hobby segment were primarily driven by the expansion of large sporting good chains such as Dick's and Academy Sports. This growth is expected to continue. Executives at Academy recently disclosed plans to open 160 to 180 new stores over the next 5 years to achieve nearly 800 locations nationwide, more than tripling its current store count of 282. So I assume all the brokers listening to this podcast will be reaching out to Academy Sports, including yours truly. At the same time, Dick's continues to expand its House of Sports concept as well as its fleet of traditional stores. All right. Discounters continue to play an outsized role in driving space demand. Last year's Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and Five Below all leased substantial amounts of space in 2023. Dollar Tree is cutting nearly 1,000 of its underperforming Family Dollar stores from its ranks. The sector continues to see steady expansion, account for 14.4% of new leasing activities. Again, if you just focus on some of the articles, it seemed like the dollar store concept, one, they need to rename it, right? It's got to be like the $10 store concept, but was leaving. But that's not the case. They've just been cutting their losses. But look, it's interesting that's not in here is the drugstores. I didn't see Walgreens, and now they did say healthcare. Healthcare doesn't show up here in the top 5, but earlier they mentioned that healthcare firms. Now, I don't know if that includes Walgreens or CVS, but I've said this before. I have noticed more Walgreens and CVS stores closing and coming back to market than I've ever seen in my career. And it used to be like bank it, get a Walgreens CVS lease, count on it. You're going to get a coupon for the next 20 years, and maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe that's due in part because Target and Walmart and Publix and the Costco, maybe, I don't know, are offering healthcare and drugs that you can buy through them and prescription glasses and all kinds of things. So maybe there's just not a demand for freestanding drugstores anymore. Maybe we'll look at them like something like Best Buy or service industry that was so niched that others just absorbed it. So we'll see. Well, listen, we could talk about more things. Here's another retail article from CoStar. More residents follow retail in U.S. mall. Redevelopments shift to incorporate housing broadens in property transformations. And this is a beautiful picture here of a 44-year-old enclosed Galleria Mall in White Plains, New York. It's going to be transformed into District Galleria with 7 residential towers, 3,400 apartments proposed. I think this is a great fit. it's a no-brainer. And I've said it often. For those of you down here in South Florida, I wish the Falls would take the Macy's on one end and just knock that down and put up 2 or 3 residential towers. If you were a young couple or just a young professional, wouldn't you want to live there? You can go eat to the restaurants, go see a theater, go grab coffee, have entertainment, have shopping, all there, as long as it can be done in a nice way and with secure way. I mean, I think it's a great fit. You've got a host of amenities. You know, in other markets, we were in Spain in the winter. You know, you've got this residential tower, and then at the bottom you have tapas bars and coffee bars and all kinds of life, and we just don't do that well in the United States. You have to get in your car, go somewhere, park in a garage, and then walk into a mall or a retail area. And so bringing the two together, I think, is the way that it's going to go. And Europe seems to be there, and I think this is going to start happening more and more in our local markets in South Florida, and we're seeing it in New York. So we could talk about that, but you're wondering, where are all these big boxes? You know, Broward Mall up here on Broward and University in Broward County in Fort Lauderdale. You know, they've had this old defunct Sears just been shelled. It's been sitting there for 10 years, and well, knock it down and build some apartments. They're building around it. Just build it right there. And what that'll do is that'll elevate the rest of the mall, because it's going to bring in higher grade restaurants and higher grade shopping to caretake to the market. And so I think that's a great fit. And here the article is highlighting a few of those redevelopments. Monmouth Square will have 1,000 luxury apartments and so forth. So development obstacles it goes into. There's a lot that can be talked about here. Now, city in Florida considered to be America's best spot to live in. Where do other cities stack up? If you haven't read the article, I posted this one here recently on LinkedIn. Naples was listed as the #1 city to live in the United States. Go figure. So you probably just need about $10 million a year in annual income to afford to live in Naples. But Naples is listed as one of the top places to live, scoring well in the job market and quality of life categories, helped Naples achieve that feat and beat out 149 other major cities that appeared on the list. In last year's rankings, Naples was number 6. And let's see, Colorado Springs, Greenville, South Carolina, my brother's up there. Charlotte, North Carolina, also ranking in the top 5. How about Huntsville? You want to live in Huntsville, Alabama? Well, they're number 7. There you go. You can go to Huntsville, Alabama, Virginia Beach. Austin, Texas, 8 and 9. And Boulder, Colorado finishes the top 10. So 1 in South Florida. It looks like only 1 in Florida made the list. And this last little video here, we're going to go ahead and skip it. But it's an interesting video. South Florida homes are overvalued by 35% according to FAU. And the article talks about, listen, there's a real problem because the video points out the fact that first-time buyers and young people are priced out of the market. You know, at best, maybe a condo, maybe a townhouse, but not a single-family house at this point. And unfortunately, FAU believes that they're 35%, single-family houses are 35% overvalued. What FAU, according to these two gentlemen from Fox Business News, which is where this article comes from, what they point out is the fact that, well, FAU didn't take into consideration that we have more people moving into the state of Florida, especially South Florida, than homes that are being built. So you have more demand than the supply can handle. That doesn't spell major 35% correction. Yes, homes are overvalued, but more people are coming in and more people are buying, and there are more people to buy than there are availability and supply. So that doesn't bode well for the South Florida housing market if you are looking to purchase. If you are owning, as they'll point out, great time. You're increasing. Perhaps you want to sell your house and move to Greenville or Austin or one of these places that the cost of living is a little less. But if you're here, you're kind of landlocked. You're not going to be moving anytime soon unless you're going to cash out. And it's going to be a difficult time for first-time home buyers, especially younger couples and young people who haven't had a chance to save up and put 20% down a $700,000 house. Now, what we're seeing boots on the ground is I'm starting to see price reductions. I'm starting to see houses get listed at $800,000, $900,000, and 1 or 2 weeks later, they're going down $25,000 to $50,000 until they finally go to contract. So there's certainly an expectation that the market is here, and meaning high, and buyers are down here because of the interest rates, and somewhere they're starting to meet. And right now it looks like even houses that just look beautiful on Zillow or Realtor that look like they're ready to move in, best of neighborhoods, you're still seeing price reductions. So you didn't see that a year or two ago. You're starting to see that now. So maybe quietly we're seeing a 10-15% correction, as we speak. I don't think we'll see a 35% correction. Some of us would love to see that in South Florida, but I don't believe those days are coming. All right, so we have a new segment that we started to do here at the end of each podcast, and it's called the Commercial Real Estate Reddit Time. Commercial Real Estate Reddit Time. And what we do here is we try to answer a question. If you're not familiar with commercial real estate on Reddit, it's just one of the feeds there. You can join, and people post different kinds of questions. And we try to answer them here on the podcast for them. And this one, I actually went ahead and answered. I'm the only reply. This poor gentleman posted, this is his question: commercial lot due diligence questions. Purchasing a lot through SBA and curious if there's anything I'm overlooking or should be looking into. Attempting to build a project through the SBA and have a plot of land about to be under contract, conditional upon financing. I get a 90-day due diligence period. What are some of the things I should be looking into, researching to ensure my project doesn't get held up, not achievable? Any kinds of surveys, inspections that I need to do that might not be thinking of. Zoning is good to go. Appreciate any recommendations, small or big. Thanks. So I put in, this is what I typed in, and this is a real life experience. First, I'd walk right into the local municipality or city and discuss your project to gauge their appetite for your project. Just because zoning is good to go, the local city will have much to say. I lined up a land play for a self-storage group in my market, South Florida. It's actually a city of Plantation, with ideal zoning. And in fact, self-storage was an approved use. You were allowed to build it. They had enough square footage with setbacks. There was no reason that we couldn't just bought this piece of dirt and build a self-storage site. So, however, in this case, Plantation, the city would not permit the use due to the fact they deemed they already had too many self-storage providers. They already had 3 existing and 1 or 2 already slated to build. And they said, oh, we don't want any more. We actually ran into the same problem in Davie, where they had 2 or 3 that were in permit, and they said, we don't want any more self-storage. So even though you might have a piece of land and you look up the zoning and it all lines up, say, I want to do apartments, or I want to do self-storage, or I want to do retail, or I want to do ABC, you still need to go into that city. You still need to schedule an appointment. In most cities, it's very easy, probably within 2 weeks to 30 days max. In some cases, you could just walk right in and say, I'm looking at this piece of dirt. This is what I'm looking to build. What are my obstacles? Or maybe the city would tell you, like they did to us. We really don't want self-storage, but we'd love to have a hotel there. I say, that's wonderful, but I'm not a hotel developer. So you need to talk to the city. I don't care how good the zoning is. If you're thinking of buying a land to build, you better be talking to the city. That's number 1. Number 2, perform a phase 1 environmental report to make sure the site is clean. That's a no-brainer. You don't want to find out there was a gas station 100 years ago or whatever. They used to do fertilizers. There used to be a car wash or a dry cleaner, and they didn't clean up the place right, and you're inheriting a big mess. Or, you want to do an environmental report. I don't know, depending on whether it's covered or not covered, the land. But you want to make sure there's not, a flying squirrel that's on the endangered species list. Or if you're down here in South Florida, you better get an archaeologist out there to take a look if you're near the bay, to make sure they don't find any Tequesta Indian sites and so forth that could just stop your project. So those are just a few comments. I hope that helped this gentleman out. Commercial lot due diligence questions. Talk to the city. They want to talk to you, and they're very helpful. And a lot of them have a great idea. They have a master plan of what they'd like to see. And so if you match what you want to do with their master plan, then it's going to be an easy process. Don't go when they're fighting it. If they tell you, no, we're not interested in it, don't try to push it. So talk to the city, and that is commercial real estate on Reddit. Well, that wraps up our look at commercial real estate for this week. And remember, we like to end the podcast by reading from the book of Proverbs. And our Proverbs for the podcast is Proverbs 20:18. Plans are established by counsel. By wise counsel, wage war. That's what we're about, trying to provide you commercial real estate news, events to get on top of the curve so that you can focus, shift, and plan for your commercial real estate. If we could be part of that through Blue Box Real Estate, we'd love to talk to you if you're in Florida. Thank you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Until we talk again next week, we have a Memorial weekend, so stay safe, have a good time, and we look forward to talking to you again next week. Good day.